Monday, the 28th of October, 2019, from the Capitol Hill Bright Bar Embassy. I suppose this is our episode 9 by sheer chronology of it. I'm Raheem Kassam. Stephen K. Bannon will join us on the line from New York City. Got Jason Miller, former communications director for the Trump 2016 campaign, in studio with me here. We're bringing you this very special show this evening, ladies and gentlemen. As a result of Speaker Nancy Pelosi announcing this afternoon that there will be a full House vote on impeachment, the impeachment of President Donald J. Trump on Thursday, the implications of which we will be discussing over the course of the next hour. We're delighted to be joined also by Congressman Matt Gaetz. Matt Gaetz, one of the firebrands who has been fighting vigorously back against the Democrats' secretive hearings in the SCIF on Capitol Hill. I want to see if we have our host Stephen K. Bannon on the line. Steve, are you with us?
Raheem, I'm here. If you can hear me.
Yeah, we got you loud and clear. Yeah. Steve, just before anything else, give us your take. This was unexpected.
The take is that, between Rifkin's piece and the Wall Street Journal, pressure that was put on, all the shows that we did, people going on Fox, Mark Meadows, particularly, I think Congressman Gaetz's the event that he pulled last Thursday, which I said broke the fever, I think changes in a direction that now she's taking it to a full vote of the House, and I believe, it's Congressman Gaetz, and we're going to have Mark Meadows on at 37 past the hour after Congressman Gaetz to tell us what is going on, but it looks like that she has folded, at least as first, to give due process and the ability to have subpoenas for the House Republicans and actually start to give President Trump a fair shake.
I think that's absolutely right. Jason, anything on that before we go to Congressman Gaetz?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the bottom line here is that Speaker Pelosi and the House Democrats have caved. The pressure is getting to them. They have decided that they have to go and take this. But, I mean, the fundamental question everybody should be asking right now, especially our friends in the mainstream media, if they're just now taking this vote to start impeachment proceedings, what the hell have they been doing for the past month? I mean, let's just get right to it. I mean, you go down the line of a lot of really strong House and Senate members that are weighing in. I mean, Jody Hice from Georgia tweeted out, the ship has already sailed on having a fair and transparent process. Senator Lindsey Graham said a vote now is a bit like unringing a bell, as House Democrats have selectively leaked information on President Trump for weeks. Jim Jordan said codifying a sham process halfway through doesn't make it any less of a sham process. And then one of the more insightful tweets from Lee Zeldin from New York that I want to ask Matt Gaetz about is Lee tweeted out, Pelosi now says there will be a vote Thursday to authorize their impeachment inquiry. This should include minority subpoena rights, equal allocation of staff, immediate release of all transcripts. The president's counsel should be able to attend depots, present evidence, question witnesses. So there's very much a long ways to go to make sure this is a fair process. But absolutely, at the top line, Democrats have caved here. And what's been going on for the past month? This whole thing has been a witch hunt from the beginning.
Is Matt Gaetz joining us yet? I know he's calling in.
I'm here with you now, Steve.
Oh, Congressman Gaetz, so here's the question. You broke the fever last Thursday. Tell us what's going on here, because this was an explosive event that happened this afternoon, and I can't imagine that Nancy Pelosi willingly did this.
No, here's the context that I use to evaluate Nancy Pelosi's cave decision today. Nancy Pelosi is not someone who keeps her head on a swivel. She is known in this town as someone who plans and plots every single step along the way. She's a meticulous planner. And so for Nancy Pelosi to have this radical shift in her thinking, to shift away from a vote authorizing an impeachment inquiry, a Republican talking point, to now it being the Democrat message of the week, that's a substantial shift. I think something had to motivate her. I believe that motivation came when Democrats in Congress could no longer defend the process that was underway. You've got a lot of Democrats in districts that Donald Trump won, and I think Nancy Pelosi heard from those members that with a straight face, they couldn't defend on just the procedure that was being undertaken. Now I think, to Jason's question, we've got to get to the substance, beyond the procedure, to the actual substance of the defense. And the defense is that the president is innocent. And if we get Ambassador Volker's transcript into the public square, if we have the opportunity for open examination of witnesses, I think we'll be able to prove that definitively to the American people.
Jason.
Yeah, Congressman, a question for you here. So the other thing that people should know is that as part of these proceedings, Speaker Pelosi has said that after Thursday's vote that she's going to move the hearings away from being under Adam Schiff's purview in the Intel Committee and over to Jerry Nadler's purview on judiciary. Now, we know that in the 1998 impeachment of Bill Clinton that most of this happened through judiciary and there was a more fair, equitable process. But there also seems to be here a bit of a benching of Adam Schiff as he's become a complete lightning rod in this process. Now, the good news to moving to judiciary is we're going to see a whole lot more of Matt Gaetz, which is fantastic, along with Jim Jordan and Biggs and Gomer. But can you talk a little bit about the distinction and the differences in moving from Intel to judiciary?
Absolutely. It means that House Democrats believe that they want to fashion the Schiff work into actual articles of impeachment. Adam Schiff and Jerry Nadler are playing a strange game of musical chairs. You know, Nadler originally had jurisdiction, originally launched the impeachment inquiry, but then after the hearings with Robert Mueller and with Corey Lewandowski, a lot of rank-and-file Democrats lost confidence in Jerry Nadler because the American people were not buying the overstated claims, the overstated allegations about the Russia hoax. So then in enters Adam Schiff. Adam Schiff deployed a strategy that I think really eroded his credibility. I think the American people would not trust him as a fair arbiter of anything regarding President Trump because he was so secretive and so insistent on using a leak-based strategy rather than open hearings, which the public typically favor. So now Nadler's back in the game, the original starter, back to try to secure his position, and we'll see how it goes. But I think that what we can take from the decision to go from Intel back into judiciary is that they are trying to now take what they've got and fashion them in articles of impeachment.
And Congressman, what you just said there was very, very important, and I want to make sure that we don't gloss over this. The fact that they're now trying to legitimize all of the unlegitimate work that Adam Schiff did by taking his work product and shifting over to this quote-unquote fair and open process with Jerry Nadler is huge. I mean, they're trying to go and absolutely trying to railroad this thing through, and I think we have to make sure to keep blowing that up as we move into Thursday and beyond.
Well, and there's another way to blow this up, Jason. Frankly, I don't trust Jerry Nadler any more than I trust Adam Schiff to run an open process because Jerry Nadler was one of the people lying to the country for 2.5 years about the Russia hoax. If we are going to have open hearings with witnesses telling divergent views on facts, I think that Chairman Lindsey Graham, my good friend, someone who I think does a good job in the Senate, I think he ought to hold hearings. He ought to put Ambassador Volker right alongside Ambassador Taylor. They've got two very different stories that they've told, and let's just flesh it out. But I think that we'll get a fairer process with Senator Graham gaveling in and bringing those witnesses in than we ever can get from Jerry Nadler or Adam Schiff or any other of the Trump-hating folks in the leadership in the House Democrat side.
Congressman Gaetz, Raheem Kassam here. I just want to, for people who are just sort of tuning into this and finding this out, figuring out what is all going on. I mean, the Democrats had said that this was a process that they expected to go maybe to Thanksgiving, maybe to Christmas, maybe beyond. They were being very cagey and woolly about what happened. Do you suspect, I mean, I have a long list in front of me, and we can go through all of them if you have time, but do you suspect, as I do, that perhaps these testimonies weren't quite working out the way they had hoped, that there wasn't this great smoking gun that they had been perpetuating before the American people, and now they're having to put their foot on the accelerator, as you mentioned, it switches committees, it switches, all the people involved are switching very quickly. Is this now looking like they've overextended here? Yeah,
it sort of looks like a line change in a hockey game, and I would...
Can you do that in soccer terms for me?
So I think that what you see in this shift from House Democrats, likely shows the lack of a smoking gun, the lack of a central piece of evidence or a central theme. I also think it means that the Democrats understand that their evidence isn't going to get any better with age. In litigating cases, you learn the best evidence rule, which means that if evidence isn't, more or less the most authentic, the most original evidence, it frankly can be barred from consideration by a judge. Well, here, the best evidence is unquestionably the transcript between President Trump and President Zelensky, which shows no pressure, no quid pro quo. And then you've got Zelensky's own statements, which are indicative of what occurred and his state of mind in the richest and fullest context. And he says no pressure, no quid pro quo. And so with those two headwinds blasting at the Democrats, they understand that there is not going to be a better atmospheric condition for them to lift off with this impeachment inquiry, and so they're simply doing it despite the tremendous turbulence it's causing.
Congressman Gates, I know we've got to let you jump, but I want to bring in Jason here.
Yeah, Congressman, one final question for you. So Alex Moe from NBC News just tweeted out that she approached Speaker Pelosi to comment on the impeachment resolution, and Speaker Pelosi replied, "It's not an impeachment resolution." Then can you help shine some light on what the heck it is then?
Yeah, I think that it's a messaging document for Democrats to try to clap back at the critiques that I've made and that my colleagues have made regarding the lack of any formalized structure. See, when I took my colleagues and entered the committee room and sat down, we essentially called their bluff. We showed that there was no rule by which they could continue to justify this process and that they were going to have to actually institutionalize some system before the American people. So in a sense, what you see today vindicates my efforts last week, because we had a big old flashlight and we shined it on the cockroaches, and this indicates that they're scattering. And the fact that Nancy Pelosi doesn't know is that an impeachment resolution, an impeachment inquiry, a justification of a prior inquiry, it only, I think, reinforces how scatterbrained they are thinking, because the evidence isn't getting better, and I think the American people are starting to see this for the not only procedural sham that it is, but for the substantive sham that it is.
Congressman Matt Gaetz, thank you so much for joining us here last minute on this emergency podcast of the War Room Impeachment Show. Congressman Matt Gaetz, thank you very much.
Thank you, guys.
Jason, lots to unpack there. Thankfully, we have, thanks to the John Fredericks Show and the John Fredericks Network, the whole rest of the hour to go. We'll be joined by Mark Meadows, Congressman Mark Meadows, in the next segment as well. But you and I have some time here. What stood out for you there, and what stands out for you in general? This is obviously breaking news, and so I don't expect you to have all the answers. But you've been following this. We've been tracking this together for a while. What stands out for you, Jason? Yeah,
I mean, as someone who's a political strategist and a communication strategist, for Speaker Pelosi to cave on this, I think is really, it's momentous. I mean, this is big. As Congressman Gates said, Speaker Pelosi is known for having things mapped out for weeks and months at a time, if not years at a time. And, I mean, she might be the best comms director on the planet, bar none. But the fact that they made this move tells me a couple things. That the pressure that Republicans and supporters of the president are putting on Democrats, and the fact that we've started fighting back this past week, is making a big difference. And I think that Adam Schiff is feeling the heat as well, and I think there are a lot of Democrats who have rightfully recognized that Chairman Schiff is not the perfect messenger anymore. That he's been beaten up way too much, and again, it's because they've been running this as a hoax. But if anything, if Republicans and supporters of the president respond to this correctly, we can take this cave and turn up the heat on them even more. Because again, if they're just now formally voting, like I said before, what have they been doing this past month? I cannot go back over that enough and enough.
Nancy Pelosi wrote to fellow Democrats today, quote, "We are taking this step to eliminate any doubt as to whether the Trump administration may withhold documents, prevent witness testimony, disregard duly authorized subpoenas, or continue obstructing the House of Representatives." That's a letter from Nancy Pelosi. Let's get into that a little bit, Jason, because we've been saying since we started this show last Monday that the administration, that the departments concerned, whether it was White House, whether it was state, what have you, do need to be fighting back against this. You know, we asked the question, why haven't there been injunctions against people going to testify if they didn't really want to testify? We saw the first one today, Charles Kupperman refusing to go today to the Hill and testify in front of Democrats. So there's that element to it for a start that Nancy Pelosi now needs to fight back against. She's figured out that we've figured out the joke. that we've figured out that actually this isn't a process that people necessarily have to partake in if they don't want to partake in it. This is by and large show trials without the show. They're in the skiff, in the basement, in secret. And perhaps Nancy Pelosi is now starting to recognize that there is a fight back going on. And there are some other things to that as well. Number one, after Bill Taylor's so-called explosive testimony last week, where actually I think he didn't do himself any favors, as we mentioned on this morning show, which you guys can all catch up on at warroom.org, and I highly encourage you to do so, of course. No biases here. After Bill Taylor's testimony, and after that kind of has started unraveling, people have started picking at the threads of it. People have started realizing, what is this weird duality he has with Ukraine? What is this weird thing he has where he's standing at the water cooler with Tim Morrison, and Tim Morrison from the NSC whispers something to him, and then it becomes a whole quid pro quo thing. So are they losing momentum, number one? Number two, is this a media fight that she's now having with President Trump, who effectively bigfooted her, bigfooted the Sunday shows, said, we're not going to play your game in the house. What we're going to do is I'm going to kill Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi. See how you like that. This is a media fight. She wants to stomp on his victory lap that he has rightly been taking for the last 24 hours. I got a couple more for you, and then I'll bring you in. Has the testimony this far, and specifically was the testimony that they saw this weekend from Philip Rieker, particularly poor? Maybe they felt, okay, well, these things aren't bringing us what we expected them to bring us, not what we expected, not what we hoped that they would bring us, and we now need to push this forward. Is it the case that this show and all the other people who have been working on this and figuring out what the Democrats are doing, are we closing in on the BS that they've been spreading? I mean, we've been honing in on some major things, and Matt Gaetz storming the skiff last week, closing in on things that are making the Democrats' procedures fundamentally unpopular in the country. There's more. Is it because the White House is becoming more serious? Is it because of the talk of Tony Sayegh going in? Is it because of what the president has been implying about a war room team? Is it because it's riling up the Trump base? Is it because of what Scott Rasmussen told us again this morning on the morning show, that actually turnout may well increase as a result of what the Democrats are doing to this duly elected president? And is it because fellow Democrats, like the guy, what's his name, Max Rose in Staten Island, is it because they're feeling the heat from their electorates over this secretive process, and people are saying to them, look, Staten Island, pretty conservative, pretty Republican area, actually. Max Rose, elected a Democrat in the last midterms, he called for this to move to a more public footing earlier last week. And I think because his constituents are probably saying, hey, we didn't elect you to do this behind closed doors. Jason.
Yeah, and Raheem, I'd answer that with 5 or 6 yeses all in a row. So amazing that we agree on all these points. But let me go and unpack this a little bit. So as we talk about the momentum swing, absolutely. And the fact that Speaker Pelosi picked this fight over killing al-Baghdadi, I thought was a pretty big deal, because they had all the momentum on their side. They've been absolutely kicking President Trump and Republicans in the shins for going on a month now. And why go and pick the fight over something like killing the leader of ISIS, which has near unanimous support? I mean, that's just such a dumb thing to go and pick. But the other thing too, when we talk about the momentum swing, and the one thing I want to say where I respectfully disagree with President Trump on a little bit is I do think that the process argument needs to be one of the planks, not the only plank, but one of the planks in the elevator pitch as we're talking about the unconstitutional nature this has been going on, and I'll tell you why. Speaker Pelosi threw an interception here, I believe, in her moves today by reversing course. And what forced that was the blitz from Gaetz and Meadows and Jordan and Biggs and Scalise and Zeldin, all of these Capitol Hill warriors of putting the pressure on Speaker Pelosi and Adam Schiff. That's what forced this turnover. As we talk about the media fight, absolutely it's a media fight. This entire thing from the very beginning has been one big effort to try to beat up President Trump and take him down a rung. And Raheem, you're exactly right. I mean, this weekend's testimony was lame. I mean, lame is probably the nicest way to go and put it. And I think they realized.
Let's be clear. They grilled Philip Rieker for 9 hours. You saying they didn't get anything?
No, otherwise that would have been leading the news Saturday night.
Right.
If there was anything good, and again, we've heard Mark Meadows, we'll talk to him in a few minutes here, we've heard Mark Meadows say that no witness so far has proven anything toward a quid pro quo.
Right.
So they had Rieger up there for 9 hours, didn't get anything. If there was something good, they would have cut away from the al-Baghdadi news so quick Sunday morning and said, hey, that's great. We got the leader of ISIS, but you know what? Let's say something negative about Trump. And so I do think the Democrats' tactics are very unpopular. The White House ramping up their game. We do hope they pull the trigger with Tony Sayegh and he joins Stephanie Grisham and some excellent folks that are over there to start punching back. And, Democrats are definitely feeling the heat here. So what we have to do is make sure that it's sustained, keep it up, keep pressuring them. And keep on the fact, as Congressman Lee Zeldin said in his tweet, that we don't have the details yet on what this resolution or on this impeachment is going to be. We have to make sure that the same basic rights that were afforded to Bill Clinton back in 1998 are at least afforded to President Trump now. Otherwise, it's just going to continue to be a sham process.
That's right. You are listening to a very special broadcast of the War Room Impeachment Show, usually hosted by Stephen K. Bannon. He's on assignment in New York. Joined us at the top of the show. We've got Jason Miller, former communications director for the Trump 2016 campaign. My name's Raheem Kassam, former chief advisor to Brexit leader Nigel Farage and fellow at the American Principles Project. We've got Mark Meadows, who'll be joining us in the next segment. Stick around. You're not going to want to go anywhere. We've got to pay some bills. We'll be right back.
War Room, Impeachment, Bannon, Miller, Kassam. Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
Welcome back to the War Room Impeachment Show. Very special broadcast this evening, Monday, the 28th of October, 2019. We are in the Capitol Hill studios here in the Breitbart Embassy. Jason Miller, the former communications director for the Trump 2016 campaign, Raheem Kassam, former chief advisor to Nigel Farage, and we are rejoined by our usual host, Stephen K. Bannon, up in New York at the moment. Steve, are you with us? I think we're still waiting for the line to reconnect there. Jason, we just want to recap. We had a
actually have Congressman Mark Meadows. I don't know if you were looking for me or not.
Hey, we'll take Congressman Meadows. That's a big
It only gets better. Congressman Meadows, what a pleasure, and thank you for joining us here on the show. We're gonna dive straight into this. We had Matt Gaetz, your colleague, in the first segment of this show, and Jason took us through some of the breaking developments. The reason we're hosting this show, very special edition of this show, we're usually live at 9 a.m. here on the John Fredericks Network, and very special thank you to John and his production staff for allowing us to take the show live this evening. We are doing it because Nancy Pelosi has kind of said that we're going to have some kind of vote on Thursday in the House regarding the impeachment inquiry. Things are getting less clear, not more clear, as the time ticks on. I want to throw it to Jason to ask you, Congressman Meadows, what exactly is going on. Jason?
Yeah. Hey, Congressman, this is Jason Miller, and thanks again for joining us. Your interview the other day was fantastic, and you're one of our heroes here at War Room Impeachment and one of the great leaders we have on Capitol Hill. Congressman, one of the things, and you touched on this on Twitter just a couple of moments ago, but you seized on the, I guess, bizarre comment that Speaker Pelosi made just a little bit earlier to NBC News, saying this is not an impeachment resolution. Can you fill us in on what the heck this might be then?
Well, she's trying to protect those Democrats that are in 31 Trump districts is what she's trying to do. And she's also trying to have her cake and eat it too, Jason. And you and I have seen this. This is not our first rodeo. Let me tell you what bothers me the most is they haven't been transparent. We've called them out on it. Now they're going to have a vote to appear as if they're transparent. But really what they're doing is putting a rule vote for limiting the hearing to only the House Intel Committee. So what does that mean? Jim Jordan, who spent the vast majority of the time in these depositions, myself, Scott Perry, we're not going to be allowed to cross-examine the very witnesses that we've spent the last 70 hours examining. And I tell you, every day it gets more bizarre. It's all about politics, and it's time that the American people call them out on it.
Yeah, and Congressman, that's a very important point, and I know that you tweeted about this also just a little bit ago. But moving this from Intel over to Judiciary, I think there's also a dynamic of Adam Schiff being benched and a reemergence of Jerry Nadler. I know, obviously, back in 1998, this was the committee where most of the things went from. But to this whole point about what the heck has been going on for the past month, if there wasn't a vote and they're realizing this was unconstitutional, completely unconstitutional, can you talk about a little more granular detail about how shady this is, that they're trying to move committees so that we can't go through and re-examine some of the folks who came in earlier?
Well, it is shady, Jason, and what it is, it's politics as usual with Nancy Pelosi and Adam Schiff. Here's what they're doing. So I've spent the last 75 hours, was here for 8 hours on Saturday, going through, having a witness, spending time going back and forth, finding out where their arguments are strongest and where they're weakest, where they're actually circumventing the rule of law and not giving the president his fair shake. This is all about trying to gain support among 31 Democrats that are in Trump districts, hoping to not call it an impeachment inquiry when they've already made the decision to impeach the President of the United States. And so let me get even a little bit more granular. The House Intel Committee is a select committee by a few of Nancy Pelosi's chosen special members. She wants to keep it away from Jerry Nadler and the Judiciary Committee. Why? Because we beat them so bad when it came to Bob Mueller and all of that. She wants to keep it out of the Oversight Committee. Why? Jim Jordan has the ability to not only cross-examine, but do it very effectively. So this is all about trying to not only handicap the president, but sideline people like Jim Jordan, myself, and Matt Gaetz and others who can best articulate the sham that this whole process has become.
And Congressman, one of the other things I'd throw in here is, and I described it this way in our earlier conversation with Congressman Gaetz, but I think what we saw here is Speaker Pelosi really throwing an interception, turning the ball over. That was largely because she was blitzed by a linebacker crew of Meadows and Jordan and Zeldin and Biggs and the all-star team on the other side. So clearly, our putting pressure on House Democrats forced this change to happen. Looking ahead, looking at Thursday's vote, and then as this moves into the quote-unquote fair and open testimony, which, of course, we know that nothing's been agreed to and we don't know what's going to be out in the open, how do we continue to put pressure on Speaker Pelosi and the Democrats as they move into their sham open proceedings?
Well, here's what we do. We continue to speak the truth like you're doing right now, and you know that what's happened is the only reason they're holding this vote is because they were losing public opinion on the fact that all Americans should see this. Now, here's what they've done, though. Here's where we've got to call them out. They've now tainted the witnesses, 8 different witnesses that they have tainted very effectively by leaking out parts of testimony from other witnesses saying, well, you might want to not say that quite this way because it looks better for the president. I can tell you, if your listeners, the people who are tuned in right now listening to this, if they will get on the phone and call their members of Congress, and not once, not twice, but call them 3 times and say, listen, we are more concerned about prescription drug prices and transportations and having a safe military regime in those areas that protect American families. If they will do that, Nancy Pelosi will start to feel the heat. She already is. She's running around saying, well, this is not an impeachment inquiry, when it's exactly that. It's an impeachment parade. They're just trying to get enough people on the parade bandwagon.
Congressman Meadows, thank you again for joining us here. This is Raheem Kassam. I may be being an ignorant foreigner here, an ignorant Englishman on this, but I still don't understand
with
what...
a charming accent, though.
Well, exactly, I can get away with anything. I still don't understand what this is. They're being very woolly, very cagey about what exactly type of vote is going to happen on Thursday, and I suspect that you're correct in your assertions that a lot of this is due to the pressure that's being heaped on the remind me again, Jason, Max Rose. I'll remember that at some point. Maybe just put a picture of him on my cell phone background or something. And people like that. But also, do you think this is anything to do with the fact that they've been losing momentum? They've been losing momentum with the witnesses. We've been going over the Bill Taylor testimonies, and it's unraveling. I mean, it's very seriously unraveling. The White House is now starting to push back. There are better channels of communication between the Hill and 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. There was a Philip Rieker 9-hour testimony this weekend, which I believe, according to you and your colleagues, that nothing new was coming out. But nevertheless, these people have to run that gauntlet. You have Charles Kupperman, who's refusing to go before this. You've got the Trump base being riled up, as Scott Rasmussen told us, with perhaps a higher turnout next year. I mean, there are all these sorts of indicators and tells, am I wrong, that actually they may have overshot the target on this one.
Well, you have a charming accent, and your analysis is spot on both. And so if we look at
now, that's going to be my ringtone.
It should be. It should be. They have overshot the target, and I can tell you here's why. Why they are saying it's not an impeachment inquiry and it's only a rules vote is so that they can get those Democrats that are all nervous about this, and they're going home and they're going back to their constituents and they're saying, listen, we don't want an impeachment. So they're trying to show momentum by getting 218 Democrats for something that is a rule vote, but
this is the reset button for them.
Change the play. Yeah, exactly.
Can you explain, just for our audience who don't necessarily get into the hyper weeds on all this stuff, what is a rules vote? What is the difference there? What is the distinction?
So here's what happens is in order to change the jurisdiction of committees and allow Adam Schiff to take this forward, they have to put forth a rule because it's violating existing House rules for him to do that. So they're putting forth a rule that essentially says everybody else has to be sidelined. We want Adam Schiff to take this forward, and that's why it's coming out of the Rules Committee and not coming from a committee of jurisdiction. So it's essentially saying we want Adam Schiff to continue to hide the identity of the whistleblower from the American people and take this forward at the expense of all the other members.
Congressman Meadows, we have some more testimonies coming up, supposedly coming up this week. What does this vote mean for those? Will they still go ahead, or will they be shifted?
Yeah, they'll still go ahead because the Democrats see it to their advantage to go ahead with two more depositions and actually have those two people come in. They believe that they're going to be star witnesses for the Democrats. We've seen that they've not lived up to that hype in the past. We believe that it'll be a failed mission here. But, yes, those will continue to go on tomorrow and the next day, and then we'll vote on this, and they'll try to put it all out in the public. But the one thing that remains will be the whistleblower. No one will know it but Adam Schiff. I think it's time that we know who he or she is and that we hold them accountable because we know that they've coordinated this effort from a partisan standpoint, not just from a patriotic standpoint.
Amen.
So we're talking about the rest of the week. Supposedly tomorrow, will you say Lieutenant Colonel? Will we say Lieutenant? Alexander Vindman, the Ukraine expert for the National Security Council, senior Pentagon official Catherine Wheelbarger, and added as well State Department Special Advisor for Ukraine Catherine Croft, State Department official Christopher Anderson, and then Thursday the big one, the so-called star witness, another star witness. Tim Morrison, the National Security Council's Senior Director for Europe and Russia. You used the term, I believe, earlier that tainted witnesses, and this is something that Jason Miller, who's here in the studio with me, used last week. Witness tampering, witness prepping, we called it. I mean, are these people going to be able to come back with any semblance of credibility in a more public setting, or have we already ascertained that these, if they have been willing, as Some of them have. Chris Murphy tweeting about his meeting with Ambassador Charge d'Affaires Taylor. Are these people going to be reliable in public? And if so, what are your guys' strategies? What are the Republican strategies going to be to deal with that?
Well, they're not going to be reliable from an American citizen's point of view. And Jason's exactly right. The tainted process has been one of coaching, of directing, of leading the witnesses. The only good thing that can come of all of this is the fact that the leading questions that Adam Schiff and others has put forth will now be known to the American public. But this is all about Adam Schiff running for president in 2024. He's trying to get his time in the bucket so he can have his face be the face of impeachment. And we need to make sure he's the face of impeachment defeat. And if you're successful in the war room, if we're successful here on Capitol Hill, we'll call it out for what it is. And it's nothing more than partisan politics at its worst.
Congressman Mark Meadows, once again, thank you so much for joining us here on the War Room Impeachment special broadcast. Thank you.
Great to be with you. Take care. God bless.
Jason, I couldn't have said any of it more robustly myself.
Wow. You can see why Mark Meadows is such a fan favorite for conservatives and Republicans and MAGA supporters everywhere. I mean, he just brings the heat. Mm-hmm. He is sharp. He is detailed. And the way that he walked through the process, which as far as going into the legislative aspect, the jurisdiction and the rules vote. And thank you, by the way, for following up on that, because even as someone who worked on the Hill for a few years, I couldn't articulate it nearly as well as the congressman did. This shows how this is all one big media game. And the thing that I can really appreciate about Congressman Meadows is he heads back to, I think he's from Henderson County in North Carolina, but as he heads home and members go back to their districts over the weekend, we know that they're hearing a different message from what Pelosi and Schiff and the rest of them are trying to throw out there. But I thought that comment about Democrats tainting the witnesses, I thought was absolutely huge. I think also the fact of I had not heard that Adam Schiff might be looking at running a president in 2024, but that sounds like something that Adam Schiff, who's a cold, calculated killer, probably would want to be doing. But I think also Congressman Meadows had some good messages about our need to keep up the heat here and keep it going.
Especially on those 31 districts?
Especially on those 31 districts.
We should get a list of those 31 districts up on the site, up on warroom.org
yes.
in the next couple of hours, because I think it's pertinent that people may not know that they are in one of those districts and that they can do something directly to impact Nancy Pelosi's sham proceedings.
Well, and again, look, we've talked about this here on War Room Impeachment. Go to warroom.org. And we've talked about this really at length. But the fact that all of this water has been carried by Speaker Pelosi, Adam Schiff, maybe get like a Ted Lieu or somebody else who walks out and flaps their gums. But the fact of the matter is these 31 Democrats are in districts that Trump won in 2016. They've been virtually silent. They've been in hiding ever since this whole thing got going. And that's because they want to be able to, again, like the congressman said, have their cake and eat it too. The more we start shining the light on them, the more we start holding their feet to the fire, the more we're going to see Pelosi throw interceptions.
Yeah, I think that's right. Just reminded, ladies and gentlemen, you're listening to a special broadcast of the War Room Impeachment Show. We are usually live 9 a.m. on the John Fredericks Network, and we're very grateful to John Fredericks and the whole team for making this emergency live broadcast happen. The reason we're doing this is because Nancy Pelosi has indicated that on Thursday the House will have a vote of some sort to move the impeachment inquiry forward, maybe backwards, sideways. Nobody's quite sure what they're trying to achieve here yet, but we do know one thing for certain. This is not a good step for her. This is not a place she wanted to be in. This is not a place the Democrats wanted to be in. They thought they could drag this process out a little bit more. They thought that they would be getting more star witnesses, more star testimonies, and they didn't think that we would unravel and unpack their chicanery so easily. And if you've been listening to this show, if you've been listening over the course of the last 8 episodes, you'll have heard exactly what we've been unpacking. And I encourage you all, if you haven't heard them, there's the whole kit and caboodle is up at warroom.org for you to check out and listen. These hour-long shows, I think, again, without any semblance of bias, are perhaps some of the best analysis you'll get. And that's not me, that's the guests we've been having on, David Rivkin, who did an amazing op-ed for the Wall Street Journal. It was great to have him on, especially because many people don't have that Wall Street Journal subscription, so it was great for him to be able to talk to a wider audience about that as well. Matt Gaetz, Mark Meadows will be joined in the morning, tomorrow morning, that's Tuesday morning, by Brexit leader Nigel Farage, and some of you may be scratching your heads and saying, well, what does Brexit leader Nigel Farage know about the impeachment process? And I'll tee it up for tomorrow by telling you this. The nullification project, as Steve coined it in the early days of this administration, has been taking place on both sides of the Atlantic. On June the 23rd in 2016, the British public voted in the largest democratic mandate in the country's history to leave the European Union. If you even gloss over the newspapers or the television screens, you'll know that Brexit has not been delivered, and that the courts and the political establishment and the media establishment and the Labour Party, which is Britain's equivalent of the Democrat Party, have been trying to stop this ever since, and had some success in doing so. And the very same thing happening over here in the United States. You see it almost, by the way, the same days big things happen. That's because the left, the anti-America first, the anti-Brexit forces are so tightly knit and so tightly aligned. So I'm very excited to have Nigel with us. Nigel will be live in the studio on Capitol Hill tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. You're not going to want to miss that. Jason, we've got a couple of minutes left here. Let's do the thing we did this morning, because I think it's very important that people understand the new elevator pitch. You summarized this fantastically. We talked about how basically the reason that we're getting what we're getting right now is because there is a career bureaucratic class of people, and Bill Taylor admitted it in his testimony himself. He said he did not want to work for this president, for this State Department, if policy towards Ukraine were changing. Well, that goes to show that these people who are lauded as lifelong servants to the nation, as great patriots, they only want to do those jobs if they get to bring their ideological biases to the equation. Just run us through what you did this morning, Jason.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is literally what would happen if you're trapped in an elevator on an elevator ride from the first floor to the fourth floor with some of your colleagues at work, and someone's asking you a question trying to understand this. There are really 3 points to the elevator pitch. Is you're explaining why President Trump did nothing wrong here and why this whole thing is a sham. There's a precedent, a policy, and a process aspect to the answer. The first, the Democrats' impeachment push is unconstitutional, and that's what we're starting to get into today. Literally, what we said earlier today was we jumped all over this point. That's why you're seeing Nancy Pelosi make this move here, because this is resonating. This is forcing them to go and change their game. So now there's a lot of openings for us to go and challenge everything they've done over this past month, because all of that was done in unconstitutional manners. There's no reason to let up on that. Number two, the impeachment fight is really about President Trump's America First foreign policy, an effort by unelected career bureaucrats combined with politically motivated Capitol Hill Dems seeking to undermine the agenda. And the third part to the process point, the facts are our friends here. And very directly what I mean by that is all witness testimony thus far shows that President Trump did nothing wrong. President Trump is innocent, period, point blank. And he certainly didn't do what he's being accused of doing, which is to not send the aid to Ukraine. Mm-hmm. The fact of the matter is he sent the aid to Ukraine. So why is the mainstream media beating up on him like this? I mean, the reason is because this is all a big selective media leak game carried on by Speaker Pelosi. That's why everything should be open and transparent. And when we get the language on this resolution, not resolution, whatever Speaker Pelosi puts up on Thursday, just as Congressman Lee Zeldin said, we need to make sure that we have a real ability to see what all the funny business is behind the scenes. The Speaker Pelosi and now Jerry Nadler from the Judiciary Committee will be doing.
$391 million of American taxpayer money being lavished upon one of the most corrupt nations in the world. Not my words, the words of the left-leaning Guardian newspaper and the independent auditing firm Ernst & Young. And this is the thing that Americans need to realize. Trump was elected on the America First platform, and he was trying to make sure that money was not going somewhere corrupt and going somewhere well, frankly, you don't know where it ends up, but that's where we've been. That's where we are. This has been the War Room Impeachment Show. We're very grateful for John Fredericks and John Fredericks Network for hosting us. Stephen K. Bannon, Jason Miller, Raheem Kassam, Nigel Farage will be with us in the morning. Make sure you head over to warroom.org. Check out all the previous shows. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.